Alright, hey everybody, it's me, Buster Green, and today I'm going to do some kind of animation roundup because I've been asleep all week and I've been super behind on the news. Today I'm just going to cover a bunch of short current stories about anime this week and see if any of them are big enough to break them off into their own video. Otherwise, let's catch up on the short ones. Alright, so first things first, Steel Ball Run is coming. This one's mega satisfying for me. After a long lull in the JoJo series that looked ominous and climactic, we're finally getting Steel Ball Run, the 7th season in the long-running JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime. I kind of think that crossing the barrier into Steel Ball Run is like super huge because it opens up the possibility that we can finally see the entire JoJo's manga adapted. There was a big stop point after part 6, but now that we're into part 7, I can totally see them going past part 7 into part 8 and even straight into 9 and now just covering the whole ending as it currently stands. The announcement is so satisfying. Now, it looks like they're doing something different with the release of Part 7 since Part 6 Stone Ocean was handled by Netflix, who notoriously did a very bad job of promoting it. I have no confirmed news if they're moving off of Netflix, but I feel like they probably will be because Netflix killed the show's hype by releasing it in large binge chunks and under-promoting it. I think the fact Part 6 underperformed so much is the main reason that there was a huge time gap between the production of Part 6 and production of Part 7 getting animated. Overall, I'm super hyped about this because I've read a little bit of Steel Ball Run, and many people have the opinion that Steel Ball Run is the greatest and most complicated part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Speaking of JoJo's, I also want to cover that the live-action Thus Spoke Kishibe Rohan movie is coming out. This is the second one. The first one was Rohan Goes to the Louvre. That one made about $2 million, which wasn't great, but it was enough to pay for the movie. This new one is called Kishibe Rohan at a Confessional. Maybe it's about the Vatican, but maybe he's just going to church. I've never reviewed this series, but I actually hold it in really high regard. I've watched the whole thing. It's all on Amazon Prime, and I found that they're actually quite good. They're actually a lot better than the anime OVA that David Production made, adapting a few of the same stories. Now, they do have a tendency to sometimes go off the rails, and sometimes they get a little bit slow and boring, but for the most part, they usually tell the story with a little bit more clarity than even the original manga or novels did by adding in some really good explanatory content, which I think has always been a problem with a lot of the recent David Production JoJo adaptations. They just adapt the manga too literally, and they don't really explain any of the vague stuff, but I feel like the live-action Rohan tries not to do that. Anyway, they've adapted so many Rohan stories that I feel like at this point they're running out of Rohan stories to adapt. So I thought they had actually adapted them all, and at this point maybe Araki will just start writing new ones so they can keep making the show. Alright, next story. There's a rumor that there's a new Sonic anime coming because the Sonic movie did bad in Japan. Yeah, this is currently just a rumor, but I do have two independent sources telling me this news story from two different angles. Apparently because Sonic 3 underperformed in Japan, and because Japanese audiences just don't love Sonic the way American audiences do, Sega is apparently interested in the idea of investing in the creation of a brand new Sonic anime. This will be the first new Sonic anime since Sonic X 20 years ago. That's as far as the rumor goes. I have no idea what the anime would actually be or if it is actually happening. My news just says that it's being discussed and it seems very likely it's going to happen. Maybe it will be an adaptation of one of the recent games, like, I don't know, Sonic Generations or Sonic Frontiers. You guys obviously wanted Sonic Frontiers anime, right? Just the idea that it's on the table in Japan for Japanese audiences is great. Presumably, once it comes out in Japan, probably the rest of the world will get it afterwards. Gundam G-Quuuuux is airing in America. The order is so far different from the movies. I've done a ton of videos about Gundam G-Quuuuux. G-Quuuuux used to be my bread and butter. The TV broadcast started airing last Tuesday. Tuesday is now my Tuesday. A lot of people are noticing that it's way more like FLCL than even I remembered. And interestingly, the show is airing out of order compared to the movies. So, like, in the movie, there was the Char episode where he meets Shalia Bull. Then it flipped over to Machu. But in the TV series, it's doing the opposite. It's starting with Machu, then going to Char. This makes me very optimistically pensive that we might get more flashbacks to the 1 year war with the Zeon victory timeline. But then again, who knows? Maybe we don't even need that. I kind of just want to see Garma and Machu hanging out or something dumb like that. I hope Machu leaves the colony soon and goes into space. Next up, Science Saru is apparently remaking Ghost in the Shell this year, and it might be funny because all they've shown is it's got the original manga design, and the original Ghost in the Shell manga is actually really funny. So the deal here is that Ghost in the Shell has always been an anime associated with the highest quality of sci-fi horror, and it was very existential because that was the tone of the 1995 anime feature film by auteur director Mamoru Oshii. But that's more Oshii than the original source material. Like, if you've ever checked out the original manga, it's a little bit more poppy and funny than the like steeply dramatic Oshii version. Anyway, so Science Saru is making a new Ghost in the Shell anime, and to everyone's surprise, it's got the manga design where the major is very close to her original poppy manga colors, and she's got the big hair, and she's bright, and she's maybe happy. So that's making everyone wonder if we're finally getting a non-Oshii adaptation of Ghost in the Shell, a true to the original manga flavor version, and I'm kind of down for that because I love standalone complex and all the deep, crazy stories and theories that people can spin off of it. And I love the Oshii movie. I love the tone. I love that Kenji Kawai music. But it's a weird situation where everyone loved that first movie so much that we never really got the original Ghost in the Shell. And I think this might finally be it. I think we might finally get what like Masamune Shiro always envisioned the series could be. And that's kind of interesting. Next up on Crunchyroll, there's this new show called Kowloon Generic Romance, and people are wondering if it's going to be a good show or a bad show. So yeah, the show's making some waves. It seems to be your typical romance anime, but it's got a lot of cool, unique quirks, like the fact it's set in the Kowloon walled city, one of the most oppressive buildings in human history, a lawless zone between mainland China and Hong Kong, where the Chinese government was unable to enforce the law just because they couldn't get inside the building. And on top of that, the anime is weird because the main characters are both adults in their 30s and not just simple teenagers. And then, yeah, the Kowloon walled city is just such a bizarre setting. It was destroyed in 1993, so that seemingly sets the city in the mid-80s, giving this weird, really trendy at the moment city pop vibe that everyone fucking loves. Anyway, I'm super interested in the show for some reason, but apparently after the first episode, some people were upset with it. So the reason people were upset is the show's pacing is apparently wildly out of sync with the manga. I actually had to do some math here to figure it out, but the average anime usually will adapt about 2 to 3 chapters of a manga into a 20 to 30 anime episode. But to break that down more simply, usually 10 pages of a manga will be 10 minutes of anime. But in the case of Kowloon Generic Romance, they're adapting, at least for the first episode, about 10 chapters of the original manga at a completely breakneck pace, and that is throwing some fans of the series off. I guess they're trying to cram literally the entire series, which has like probably 100 chapters, into like a single 12 or 13 episode anime, which seems like a disastrous mistake. I don't know. I'm still going to watch it because something about the show is really calling me in. But yeah, I think a lot of people are disappointed that because the manga was so good and so popular that they're doing it a disservice by adapting it so fast. There is an interesting twist here, though, that this is apparently one of those anime that's getting a double adaptation at the same time. So at the same time the anime is being made, there's an unrelated live action film being made by Chihiro Ikeda that might have a different pacing structure than the anime. I guess the argument is that a lot of fans are making that this is supposed to be one of those shows that is just slow and relaxing and has a slice of life kind of vibe, and rushing through it is counteractive to that slice of life kind of vibe, as the source material, especially the original manga, is apparently mostly these like urban beauty shots of the now destroyed walled city, where so many people used to live like rats. And we go from rats to cats. Catseye is getting a remake, both in anime and live action. So if you've never heard of Catseye, it's this classic manga from the 80s. It's a story by Tsukasa Hojo. Tsukasa Hojo is most famous for City Hunter, about a pervy bounty hunter, but this is his other big show. Catseye is about these 3 jewel thief sisters who are trying to clear the record of their dead father, who was accused of being a Nazi sympathizer. Now, the story is infamously very locked in the 80s as the girls proceed to steal from criminals in these now modern-day ridiculous 1980s jazzercise outfits. But despite that, we're actually getting not 1 but 2 remakes of this year from 2 different countries. So first up, there's an anime remake from Japan that's going to be airing on Disney+. This anime remake seems to be true to the original. It seems to be set in the 80s. They still have the jazzercise outfits. And if they're not changing anything, I don't really see the point of remaking it, because this is kind of a series that is so locked to the 80s that it kind of needs a remake. But then on the other hand, we are getting a remake that's set in modern times. There's this other Cat's Eye being made in France, and this one is very strange. It's a French movie, a reinterpretation of the manga set in modern day France, where the girls rob the Louvre and they wear like leather cat suits instead of jazzercise outfits. And yeah, I guess that all makes sense. Why not? I'm not super impressed by the trailer that makes it just look like your average low budget serious French film. It kind of seems to lack the charm of the anime. But the one thing that makes me curious about it is a few years ago, there was this kind of goofy yet earnest remake of City Hunter in France called Nicky Larson. And I did actually enjoy that because on the one hand, it felt like a French SNL skit making fun of City Hunter, but it was so fucking true. It was so hyper specific about what was bad about the anime that it was actually hyper hilarious. Like, the best way I can describe it, it was kind of like the way the Wachowskis adapted Speed Racer into a movie that had everyone talking fast, because that was how the old cartoon was dubbed. Anyway, I bring that up because supposedly the French Catseye movie is apparently set in the same cinematic universe as the Nicky Larson movie, which means somehow in the past couple of years, a French Tsukasa Hojo cinematic universe has just willed itself into existence. That really wasn't on my bingo card, but good for Tsukasa Hojo, I guess. I guess he needs those fat royalties to stay afloat. Super minor story that's barely worth mentioning is Yamato 2199 is still ongoing in Japan, and they're releasing another sequel this year. I really need to catch up on Yamato 2199. I've only seen the first season that was released by Funimation. It was so freaking good, so I need to rewatch that and review that someday. It was like one of the best animes ever made, and I haven't seen any of the sequels. Lastly, our main story today, and this is a little bit of a murky topic. Has anyone ever heard of Kamen America? Kamen America has some like new stuff coming out, and I'm kind of torn about it. All right, so if you've never heard of Kamen America started off as a minor side hero in a Trump-themed My Hero Academia ripoff comic called Wall Might that was very cringy and very racist towards Latinos. It was total Donald Trump Republican propaganda. It was like Donald Trump the anime, where Trump literally beats up minorities. But over the years, this character spun off of that, and this character got so popular that the creators have seemingly tried to distance themselves from Trump, going so far as to even apologize for supporting him as the character found mainstream success. Kamen America, kind of ridiculous character, a weird mix of Kamen Rider, Sailor Moon, and on the American side, a mix of Captain America. And mostly the character is a very spitefully written fuck you to Disney and Marvel for canceling the original, no longer politically correct, sexy version of Miss Marvel from like the 80s and 90s. The character was originally pretty much a Miss Marvel recolor in a lot of her early appearances, but then she got a unique costume. Anyway, I can see the irony there that Marvel and Disney abandoned what was working, and so another person just picked up the baton and instantly became rich. Some kind of weird convergent evolution in the media landscape, because people are always going to like be willing to spend money on like a hot blonde lady who punches people. I'm torn here. On the one hand, I hate Trump, but I also hate Disney, so Anyway, the character has been snowballing in popularity lately, and apparently she's gotten so big that the comic is now getting a Japanese manga readaptation of like the story so far. And this manga has with it some very well animated anime commercials that have people now wondering, is the character eventually going to get their own indie anime? Anyway, I don't know what to make of this, because I'm not sure like if the people making this are like clean or not. So I'm really looking to hear back in the comments on this one about what's going on here, because I'm not sure if this character is really as popular as people are saying she is, or if the author is being MAGA grifters or just telling another lie, and their shady history is very much a red flag for most people. I'm sure there's some dirty laundry here if I like beat the bag long enough, but I don't know if I want to. And what do you guys think? Leave a comment. All right, that's all the stories here. There was one additional story, but I'm going to chop it off because it went to some dark places. I'm going to leave a poll after this video to determine if I will cover that last story, because it involves some serious crimes. All right, thank you guys. Good night.